There's a couple of guys who still have value. How about the 5 best free agents remaining?
Yes.
We wrote about it on justbaseball.com. Our guy Leo, check it out. Justbaseball.com. We'll link the article. At the time, on the 14th, he ranked the top 10 remaining free agents. Of course, Dansby Swanson is gone. Carlos Rodon is gone. But there's still some diamonds in the rough here that will eventually be signed in the next couple of weeks. Let's start with number 1. Who do you think is the best remaining free agent?
I think it's got to be Nate Eovaldi, right? I was between Nate Eovaldi and Gene Segura because I think what Gene has just done year over year over year over year at this point, you're getting an above average bat. It depends on, I guess, the eye of the beholder, but let's say you equally need a starting pitcher and a second baseman. Who would you rather have, Nate Eovaldi or Gene Segura?
Needing a second baseman or needing a starting pitcher.
Like
I
you
mean, I always
equally
think
have the
pitching is more
whole.
informant. I'm going to get the starting pitcher because, there's something about Nate Eovaldi that makes me think he's 38 when in reality he's 32.
Yeah.
He just didn't have that great of a year last year, but he was banged up, had a couple injuries here and there, but 3.87 ERA. He struck out almost 9 guys per 9 innings. Struck out almost a guy an inning.
Doesn't walk anyone.
Doesn't walk anyone, throws strikes when healthy. You know what you're going to get from the guy. Yeah. I think the only thing that I think teams are a little bit scared of is there was a drop in velocity. Last year, he averaged 97 on the fastball. In 2022, averaged 95.7. So there is that drop off, but I still think that Nate Eovaldi can work at that level. Now, he's not going to work at the number 2 level that we've seen him be at the past, but a 4? Yeah. Like, how much worse is he than Jameson Taillon?
I don't think if he's healthy, I think he could be better. I think Taillon's consistency, is, kind of why you saw him get signed first, but I don't think he's that far off from him, man. I really don't. And that's the interesting psychology of it all, right? Like, even if he comes back next year and gives you exactly what he gave the Red Sox last year, like you mentioned, a 3.87 ERA, but he does it for 40 more innings. So let's say if there was 150, 160 innings at a 3.87 ERA, walking nobody, striking out almost a batter per 9. You'll take that any day of the week as one of the remaining free agencies. That's a guarantee. Remaining free agent. That's a guaranteed number 4, number 5 type for a really good team. I think closer to a number 4 type. That's got to be the top free agent remaining. And I'm pretty surprised that Eovaldi is unsigned because you're looking at guys like Taylor Rogers getting 3-year deals, albeit less AAV, 33 million. But I'd give Eovaldi a 2-year deal. I would absolutely give Eovaldi a 2-year deal at 15, 16 mil a year. I think he's a guy that can really help you. He's shown unbelievable stretches in the postseason. He's not afraid of the big game. And I want to see him pitch outside of Fenway, right? Because he was a classic FIP guy, FIP versus ERA guy. 5.7 F4 in 2021, which would have been one of the best in the big leagues in that year. 3.75 ERA, 2.79 FIP. That's a guy that I do want to see get out of, Boston and see him pitch away from Fenway Park and see, how much better he could be because the long ball did burn him a little bit last year. I think this guy can really still pitch. I think there's still plenty in the tank. And I do think he's 40 years old as well, because I remember when he was traded for Hanley Ramirez straight up. And that feels like it was 48 years ago for me. So, but I think this guy can pitch, man. And where do you think he could go of the remaining teams? I think Baltimore. Like, I don't know why he's not wearing an Orioles hat already. I don't understand it. They've spent almost no money. He would be one of their best starters immediately, and it's not going to cost you a 7-year deal or a 6-year deal.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I was about to just say Baltimore, because again, dealt with a home run problem. Well, in Camden Yards, you move the fences back 15 feet. And he's pitched in the AL East. He knows how to pitch against these certain teams. He's pitched for the Red Sox. He's pitched for the Yankees. Was he on the Rays at one point?
Yes, he was on the Rays. He's an AL East.
He is an AL East guy. Like, if I'm the Orioles, I am signing him. Also, yes. I think the Twins should be involved. I think the Angels should still consider it.
I think we saw, I don't know who the report was, but the Angels were tied to him too. That's a no-brainer, I think, as well.
A couple other teams, maybe you could say the Phillies, because right now they have Falter as their scheduled 5. Maybe you could say Eovaldi gives us a better chance right now, but they don't need to. They could roll with that. They have enough pitchers there, and they have some young guys coming up. So maybe they're just like, we don't need Nate Eovaldi. But those are the kind of teams I was thinking about. I was thinking about the Orioles. I was thinking about the Twins. I was thinking about the Angels, and I was thinking about the Phillies. Is there anyone else before we move on to Segura?
No, I think those are the best fits, man. And I
Yeah.
like all of them. Maybe the Cardinals, but we know they're not doing it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
no, I think those make the most sense.
No, the Cardinals should do it, but they will not do it.
They will not.
Gene Segura, another guy who I thought was 40, but he's 32.
Yes.
He had a good year last year. 723 OPS, hit 277, 10 home runs, 13 bags, 84th percentile. That's above average. He doesn't look like that good of a defender. Like he by the numbers, he had a great defensive year.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think that Gene Segura, you look at him and you think defense first. I think you look at the bat and you say whatever he gives us on defense, we like. But I think he's a well-rounded player at this point.
Yeah.
He's a good defensive second baseman who can has a little bit of pop. He's now been there. His problem was he never was not a problem. It's just he had never been to the playoffs, and then he made it all the way to the World Series with the Phillies. So he's been there. And there are a couple teams now who I think could use him. He is a solid player worthy of a 2 to 3 year deal.
And he can play, second, he can play third. What I think is fascinating with him is usually with the remaining free agents, when you're this late in the ball game, it's usually like, what are we going to get? Right. Eovaldi, it's kind of, what are we going to get? With Gene Segura, I think you know exactly what you're going to get, right? You're going to get a 105 to 110 WRC plus with solid defense, which a lot of teams could use that. And I know it's not the most exciting thing in the world, but we're talking about remaining free agents. There's plenty of teams with work to do. And this guy in 2020, 106 WRC plus, 2021, 109 WRC plus, and a 3.4 F4. And then last year only played the 98 games, but 1.7 F4 and a 105 WRC plus. He's an above average hitter. He puts bat on ball. He doesn't strike out. He still can, make things happen on the base paths. And he's a vet. He's a leader. I would love to have this guy on my team. Like, talking about even like from a Marlins perspective, I think they've struck out on everybody so far. They've had players take less money to go play for other teams. Maybe you can talk Gene Segura into playing for you. Like, there's a lot of teams that I think could get better from a Gene Segura. But do you see him going to a contender and, maybe platooning and not seeing as much of that playing time? Or do you see him signing with a kind of mid-level team that's trying to get there and maybe getting that everyday role? Because I could see him as a fit with the Marlins, right? Like, that's an example of a team that I think he would be one of their more consistent hitters from the jump.
Be their best player.
I could also see him platooning and having a role with a winning team somewhere else and being a good piece for them.
No, I think that the White Sox are the team that should be getting him. That's kind of the team I'm thinking about. Their second baseman right now is Romy Gonzalez. I mean, I think they have Lurie Garcia, and the rest of their lineup is still pretty solid. You got Timmy A, you got Benintendi, you got Robert, you got Eloy Jimenez, Yohan Moncada, Vaughn, Grandal, Sheets, and then your second baseman, you have Romy Gonzalez, who slash 238, 257. What was his slugging? 352? It's just not the answer. He's just not the answer. Sorry. So I think Gene Segura is the answer. You sign him to a 2-3 year deal. It's not like the White Sox have done anything. They signed Benintendi, the largest deal in franchise history. I'm sure you have more money, Rick Hahn. I know you do.
Yeah.
Like, I know you do.
I still can't believe that's the biggest free agent deal ever. I thought I was being trolled when someone told me that. Like,
I feel
the
so
Chicago
bad.
White Sox?
Yeah, like they've been good. Are you kidding me? Like, and they have a good rotation. They have Cease, Lynn, Giolito, Clevenger, and Kopech. Would you be surprised if this team could win the division next year? No, because they have a good team.
They should be good. It doesn't make sense. And I agree. Like, they need a guy that they just know what they're getting, right? Because Luis Robert, what are we getting? Tim Anderson keeps getting hurt, right? He can't stay on the field. What are we getting from Yohan Moncada? He's been a Jekyll and Hyde guy over the last couple of years. Obviously, their catching position has been a bit of a mess as well, with Grandal looking like a disaster. So I would love to just be able to pencil in for the White Sox a 108 WRC plus with decent defense at second base, and just helps just balance out and solidify that lineup. That's why I like the Benintendi move for them. Of course, it was a long deal, a little bit more money than most people wanted, but that's why I liked it for them. They just needed a guy like that, and I know you and Jack talked about that. They could use another. Go get Gene Segura. I think that's a no-brainer for them. And there's not that many other teams that I think really make as good of a fit as they do, really. Though I would say biased because the Marlins just need anybody that can hit a baseball at a decent level. But the White Sox seem like that perfect fit, and they should be competing next year, right? Like that's the plan. You just signed Benintendi. You're obviously not rebuilding. Like let's try to put our best foot forward here, and I think he could really help them do that.
Grow up, White Sox. Sign Gene Segura. Just do it.
Figure it out.
All right, next player. There's a couple other guys, reliever or two, position players, pitcher.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you because there was one that was surprising omission from our boy Leo. I don't think Michael Wacha's in that article, and I think it's because it's based on F4 and Wacha. You know,
it's just a numbers game. He wasn't like it wasn't his opinion. It was just like this. These are the remaining free agents ranked by F4, and this is why they're good.
F4. Yeah. Exactly, and Wacha was only a 1.5 F4 guy. Because
he's good though.
He's good, and I think it was just because he had a little bit of bad ball luck, and the FIP didn't love him, so it drove down that F4. But I mean, Wacha, we're talking about starting pitchers remaining. Like if that guy's your 4 or 5, I'm not losing sleep over that either. And we could probably say the same teams for Wacha, right? I mean,
Orioles fucking
again,
come on.
The Orioles, like Michael Wacha makes you a lot better too. Like instead of Dean Kramer, you could start Michael Wacha. Right. And that just seems like a no-brainer to me. And I'm surprised that he is still on the free agent market because he had such a good year last year. And I know a lot of teams are probably looking at the analytics and saying, oh, we don't want to buy high on this guy who had a 3.32 ERA and a 4.56 xERA and a 4.14 FIP. But still, a 4.14 FIP, if he has a 4.14 ERA next season, he is still one of the most consistent starters for the Baltimore Orioles. He threw 127 innings after throwing 124 innings the year before that. And, I know he wasn't great in Tampa, but obviously figured something out with the Red Sox and kind of got it back going. That's another guy that I think same culprits. We don't need to go through them all, but it should have the same list of suitors. And I hope one of those teams steps up and does it.
Yeah, I just think teams are looking at like, he had a 5 ERA in 2021. He had a 6.62 ERA in 2020. Now, these are all smaller samples except for 2021, whereas 124 innings, like you said, 4.76 in 2019, with the Cardinals. I think people are looking
at you're gonna side with the larger sample.
You're gonna be like, well, this guy's been kind of horrible for years, and then he had this good year, but the analytics said he got crazy lucky. Like, what is he even worth? Like he might be a 1-year deal guy, according to teams. And Michael Wacha's thinking to himself, "What do you mean 3.32 ERA?
3.3 ERA last year. Fuck your analytics."
And in 2015, I had a 3.38. In 2014, 3.20. 2018, 3.20. I've done this before. I'm a better pitcher than this. So that's probably why there's the clash there. And teams are like, "All right, Michael Wacha, if you think you're so awesome, like." Then find another team. Like they're probably not even worried about him when in reality, even if he goes back to the 4.2 ERA guy, he'd still be one of the better pitchers on the Orioles. He could just grind through innings. You have a great bullpen anyway. Like use them. What are you doing? What are we waiting for? These guys are on the table. Go get them.
Who do you trust more next year, Dean Kramer or Michael Wacha?
I'd say Wacha.
Yeah. But here's the thing. I don't trust either of them very much. Rather have both. Because if one fails, maybe one will succeed. You
know who I trust more than both of them? Nathan Eovaldi.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. If you don't want Wacha, fine. Eovaldi's sitting right there. All right. I think we should talk about one reliever because I think he's the best left. And I don't know if he's on the F4 rankings because, again, he is a reliever and he's not going to make it. But I do think we should talk about Andrew Chaffin. Chaffin's been a guy now who over multiple seasons, he's not going to wow you. If you look at stuff, like his fastball isn't crazy electric. He doesn't really look like an athlete. But the guy year over year turns in great seasons. Yeah. And while his stuff doesn't jump off the page, 89th percentile in chase rate. Like you look at his savant, it's a lot of red. He throws the sinker, the slider, the fastball. Like he had a 2.83 ERA, striking out 27% of batters, and the advanced analytics like him. And in 2021, he had a 1.83 ERA. And it's like this guy's some 38-year-old journeyman. He's 32 years old. Mm-hmm. Like I think this is, for example, I would have given Chaffin a deal over Taylor Rogers, who got 3 for $33 million. I would have given him the deal, but for some reason, I think the mustache and the long hair and the
and I think the ceiling on Rodgers, like people just hope that there's almost like borderline closer ability there. But I think that ship's kind of sailed.
Yeah,
I think that ship's kind of sailed. So no, I think Chaffin is going to be one of those where it's like he plugs right into a bullpen. He's one of the team's better lefties, or probably their go-to lefty out of the pen. Does really well, and we're like, hey, why didn't more teams jump on this guy? What I always like from a reliever period, or any arm, is the combination of ability to get ground balls and strikeouts. 27.6% strikeout rate last year, 51% ground ball rate. That shows you a guy has two ways to get guys out. He can get the ground ball when you need it. He can get the strikeout when you need it. That's the kind of guy I want to get out of my bullpen, because you can bring him in when the bases are juiced. You can get the whiff, or you can get the ground ball, right? Or man on third. You can strand that guy. Like there's a value to that. And with the sinker slider combination, like you mentioned, but also the four seamer at the top of the zone, I'm shocked. I'm shocked that nobody's picked him up, and he turned down a $6.5 million player option, as he should.
As he should.
He's earned a lot more money. Yeah. And I wonder if he's really just waiting for that right offer, because there's still so many teams that could use that lefty out of the bullpen. And we could probably list almost every single team in baseball that could use Andrew Chaffin. I don't think you could ever have, except for maybe the Braves, who have all of their, really good lefties out of there. But I think he's a great fit for a lot of teams. And like you said, still plenty young for a reliever.
Yeah. 80% of his outs are ground balls or strikeouts.
Yeah.
8 out of 10.
Sign me up for that.
32. Yeah. He doesn't throw 98, but everybody in your bullpen already throws 98. Don't you need a little change of pace? That's why I love the Yankees rotation so much this year. You have Garrett Cole throwing 100 at the top of the zone. Then you have Carlos Rodon. Same kind of pitch profile, but lefty. Then you have Nestor throwing 90. Then you have Severino back throwing gas. Then you have Montes with the splitter and all these different kinds of pitches. You need the difference. Like we were talking to Taylor Davis, and he was talking about how important that is in a rotation. Listen to David Cohn, same thing. Like you need a difference in looks. Chaffin gives you that, especially from the left side. Yeah. Somebody should go sign Chaffin. You know who should sign him? The Orioles.
Yeah. Just take all the pitchers left. Just
why
get
not?
A bulk deal.
You will be better, and it will not be expensive. All right, last free agent. Anybody else? So lighten it up.
You tell me. Elvis Andrus. Who do you want to talk about? Elvis Andrus or Trey Mancini?
Oh.
I still can't believe Elvis Andrus had a 3.5 WAR.
I'd rather have him. Would I? Yeah, because he can play second and short, and he performed last year offensively. Like even Mancini, when they moved the fences back, he didn't hit all that great with the Orioles, and then didn't hit with the Astros, was absent in the playoffs. Like he played a little bit. I'm not putting on like he's some choker in the playoffs, but that's what happened. Like he was absent. So I'd rather have Andrews. Now Andrews wasn't in the playoffs either. But he came on last year and he played well, and he's also more versatile than Mancini is.
I got a question for you. Would you rather because Chicago White Sox, no brainer. He's already familiar there. He was playing there, right? Would you rather have at second base next year, Gene Segura or Elvis Andrus? And if you say Gene, I don't disagree. But I have a counterpoint for Elvis, even though I don't have a specific answer. I could make a case for both, but I'm curious what your answer is.
Yeah, I'll say Gene just so we could go back and forth, because I have no real opinion.
So here's my thing on Elvis is he can play shortstop. And if Tim Anderson continues to be banged up, you don't need to rapidly call up Lenine Sosa and pray that he can hold down shortstop, right? So I'm looking at a banged up White Sox team. Maybe I'd rather have the guy with a bit more versatility, but in a vacuum, I'd rather have Gene Segura as a hitter and just as the player. I trust him more next year. Like if Elvis Andrus regresses to like a negative F4 guy next year, I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever. I hope not. For his sake, I hope not. And he's another guy that like you think is 48 and is not. He's like 34.
Yeah.
But it still like moves pretty well, like above average runner. Played great defense at shortstop last year.
He's like a good player.
He's like a good player that we refuse to accept is a good player. Like he, again, 3.4 F4. Like that's very fine.
Very good player. That's like what DJ LeMahieu had.
Yeah.
Like, that's a good player.
Like I again, White Sox, I think perfect fit. Let's say not the White Sox. The problem is so many teams have better shortstops, right? Yeah. But if he's playing second base, he could be a near elite defender there. Where else could you see Elvis Andrus fitting in? Because
the Angels, they have Urshela at short, and he's not a shortstop.
Why do people keep pretending? I know he holds it down there.
Yes,
but like, why?
He's the third baseman.
Why do people keep pretending he's a shortstop?
I don't know. I don't know because he's played it before.
I
Yeah.
do like the Angels better than Jose Iglesias or whoever else. Like,
Yeah. Who else? I mean, the Diamondbacks
Diamondbacks could.
instead of Ahmed,
I would like him way more than Ahmed. I agree
way
with that.
more.
I agree with it because he can pick it too. I would like, and that helps the D-backs. I think next year just kind of for it with a wild card, right? Like expanded playoffs. See what happens. Get these guys experience of meaningful baseball games down the stretch.
How are they going to flirt with a wild card? That's my only issue. You got the Padres and the
I
Dodgers.
know.
One
And
of them's getting in. Then you have the NL East, or you have Phillies, Braves, Mets. Like
if
the
they
National
can
League
win
is
it,
pretty much decided next year.
yeah, which sucks.
Yeah,
If
but
they
now
can
that
win
we're
80
saying
games,
that,
though, they're playing
now that
meaningful baseball. Yeah,
now that
they're
we're
playing
saying
meaningful
that, the Rockies will win the West, Cubs will win the Central,
Yes.
Marlins win the East.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm all in on that.
No.
But that's another team though. Makes them better. The goal is to be better next year, right? And again, you can trade him at the deadline if he's performing well and your team's not good. I think D-backs are a great fit. I think the White Sox are a great fit. I wouldn't mind to see him in Detroit even. As they just continue to try to figure things out there. And I can't stand watching Javi Baez play, but obviously he's going to have to anchor shortstop for the foreseeable future. There's not really many other teams that need that shortstop. So that's why I think he's a great fit for both of those teams. And maybe the Nationals. If the Nationals should be trying to stockpile any player who they could flip at the deadline. And Elvis Andrus might not have a lot of options. And if he can play every day in Washington, albeit at second base, probably because they've got CJ Abrams at short, being able to even mentor him, work with him, and then flip him at the deadline wouldn't be a bad move either. Helps make them a little bit less miserable next year as well.
So that'll do it for this episode of the Just Baseball Show. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. Hopefully you all had a very Merry Christmas and a Happy Hanukkah, whatever holidays you celebrate. Hope you had a great weekend. That's Aram. I'm Peter. Make sure that you get your Just Baseball merch. It's in the episode description. The link is in there. Also, of course, we have more and more articles coming out on justbaseball.com. Definitely go check out the call up. Aram's been breaking down prospects. He's coming out with the Guardian system soon.
Yes.
And I like how he put it on Twitter. Shocker. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Like that. That's going to be exciting too. You can hear all of that on the call up. And of course, if you want any more not gambling advice, you can check out my podcast, Not Gambling Advice, for all the football picks. Follow us both on Twitter. It's in the episode description. Links are in there. And with that, thank you, everybody.